The O'Reilly Factor's on tonight.
The FBI agents went down there. Eric Holder went down there.
To indict Darren Wilson? Darren Wilson? No way. You know how the system works. These cops get off every single time.
Irrational claims, propaganda, hysteria. We're seeing more and more of that kind of debate in America. Tonight, Talking Points. We'll deal with it.
Sir, the fact that you don't give a crap that it endangered me is unconscionable. And I'm going to get my lawyer, and I'm coming for you.
Whoopi Goldberg furious that she's been smeared on the net. Dana Perino will tell us all about that.
I like your hat.
Thank you very much. I like the fact that the sun actually kind of peered out from the clouds just a second ago. Don't break out the sunscreen. It's still about 31 degrees out here.
Also ahead, Snowmageddon in the Northeast. Gutfeld McGurk barely survives. Caution, you are about to enter the no spin zone. The factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Irrational thinking, hysterical debates. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. For those of you who have watched us over the years, you've seen a change on the factor. Used to be I'd slug it out with almost anyone, no matter how crazy they sounded. We've had people on this program who said the U.S. government actually engineered the attacks on 9/11. We had Congressman Barney Frank on, and after we played a tape of him saying that the federal mortgage system was fundamentally sound and not in danger of going under, he actually denied saying that, even though he listened to the tape of his own words. And that resulted in a very loud confrontation. I could give you scores of other examples. But we don't do that much anymore, because the irrationality in some precincts, the dishonesty of some zealots, the absolute hysteria that surrounds some news stories is simply dumb and incredibly annoying. You get nowhere when you present facts and they're rejected. So why bother? Above all, I don't want to waste your time. Last night on her program, The First 100 Days, Martha MacCallum tried to reason with a man who believes that the feds and the authorities in Missouri allowed Michael Brown to be executed by a police officer in Ferguson. Even though Martha presented the facts, it didn't matter.
You're suggesting that 40 FBI agents were all in
suggesting
cahoots
the Department
to make
of Justice
sure
failed.
that this person was not indicted. Listen to me.
They failed.
There were 3 different forensic investigations that were done that showed that he was shot in the front.
They failed him.
Everyone in the country was told this narrative that he was shot in the back.
They all,
that
you know
he
how
had
many
his hands
black
up
men,
and said,
you know how
don't
many
shoot,
black men are
which
in
was
jail
all
right now?
discounted
You know how
by
many
40
black men are in jail right now for nothing because the Department of Justice failed them? You know how many black men are in jail right now?
So that guy believes, apparently, that blacks are brutalized, thrown into prison on a mass scale because of their color. That's what he believes. So why debate him? Facts don't matter, and you can't get a sentence out. And the worst part is, you're a racist if you don't see it the way he does. It's the same thing with less volume with some politicians. No matter how many facts you present to Nancy Pelosi, for example, she's going to tell you Obamacare is great. No matter how many policy failures there were in Iraq, some conservatives will shrug that off and deny any mistakes were made at all. Talking Points believes the propaganda element is far worse on the left at this point in history, but the honest American will cede that zealots on both sides spin it. They're not looking for the truth. We are. So you will not see that guy, Jason Pollock, on the factor after he failed to treat Martha MacCallum with the respect she deserves. You will not see Nancy Pelosi here either, even though I would interview her if given the chance. But she never did that because she knows her own city, San Francisco, is falling apart due to liberal policies. And she has to know that Obamacare has hurt far more Americans than it's helped. But she doesn't care. In her mind, she's noble because she believes in far-left tenets. For irrational people like that, compromise is impossible. And that's why America is having a tough time. There are way too many irrational people. And that's a memo. Now for the top story reaction. Joining us in Washington, Lisa Booth and Juan Williams. First of all, Juan, am I wrong for keeping Jacek Pollack off this program?
God bless you, Bill. No, I think you're exactly right. To me, that guy's a provocateur. He's not interested in having an honest debate with you. He's interested in selling tickets to his movie, and which I think is a bunch of horse feathers, by the way. But then secondly, I think he wants to do that by attracting people who may have initially thought, hey, what happened between the police and Michael Brown? Is this a case where the police were making assumptions and treated a young black man unfairly? Well, as you heard from Martha, Bill, there's been investigations done by the Obama Justice Department, the FBI, state authorities, and he wants to ignore all of them. Everyone is wrong except for him.
They all failed, but he didn't.
Yeah. I mean, come on.
Martha McCallum, Lisa, did a good job in keeping her composure.
Yes.
All right, because I will.
Yeah, I'd like to see. Yeah,
right.
I'd like to see you.
You know, the police would have had to been called. All right, with that guy, I would have cut his mic off.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted.
Yeah.
All right, he would want that because that would have been all over the websites, and O'Reilly brutalized him, you know, that kind of thing. I would never have had the patience or the professionalism that Martha had. But I'm not going to put myself through that anymore. And I guess some viewers may just be disappointed because, you know, for years I was known as the guy who slayed the dragons.
Well, look, I mean, Martha tried to give this guy the facts, and he wouldn't hear it because all he cared, he's a no-name loser who's using this video to try to get name recognition. That's all he cares about. And look at the ramifications of this video. St. Louis Dispatch reported that there was 100 protesters outside of this store. There were gunshots fired. There was a woman that punched a police officer in the nose. There was a guy who was arrested trying to set a police car on fire. Not only that, Bill, what have been the ramifications of this propaganda that was spread about the Michael Brown incident? Since then, we've seen an increase of 56.
And people could die because, you know, you have this element that want to destroy things, and this guy whips them up, and that's why we're not doing it. But let's go and elevate the discourse to Nancy Pelosi, who I used as an example. All right? Now, here's an accomplished woman, whether you like her or not. She's the second highest-ranking member of the House of Representatives. But she simply will not acknowledge reality, Juan. So you can say to her, hey, look, premiums in Arizona have risen this much for Obamacare. In South Carolina, they're down to one insurance company. The Aetna people have bailed, and the whole thing's collapsing. And Nancy Pelosi will say to you, no, that's not right. No matter what you do, you know, Rove, who's coming up, has a little board. You can have a little board. You can write it down. You can speak in a foreign tongue. She's never, ever going to cede that Obamacare isn't working. So here's a question. Is it even worth putting her on in a news forum?
Well, no, I think you have to talk to politicians, and I think she's
even if the discussion goes nowhere.
Nothing. Yeah, look, come on.
You get nothing out of it.
Well, no, I think that the audience would love to see you and Nancy Pelosi because I think you hold me, you hold Lisa, everybody to a very high standard.
And she would be, and I would do that interview, but I'm not quite sure that we get anything out of it other than me making her look foolish, which people would want to see, I guess.
Nancy Pelosi is a very smart woman, but she, because of the way that we live these days, which is people refuse to think, hey, I could be wrong. Let me listen to the other guy, and then even if I think I have something right, let me compromise because I'm after a solution. I'm after the truth. You don't see that.
And that's what happened with Barney Frank.
That is what is driving us crazy and why we are dysfunctional as an American government.
That's what happened with Barney Frank. Even after I played him the tape of him saying it, he said he didn't say it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I'm going, where's Rod Serling? We have entered the Twilight Zone. And then when he got nasty about it, I let him have it, Lisa. And, you know, people say, oh, you mean. Oh, well, he's mean.
You're not mean. But no, I would like to see you interview Nancy Pelosi. But I think the problem, too, Bill, is a lot of the time these guys, particularly the left, they're not held accountable by the media. So in a lot of the sit-downs that they do, you look at,
they
for
can
instance,
say whatever they want.
Yeah, so, Bill, for instance, look at an issue like abortion that essentially divides the country. When was Hillary Clinton ever asked about holding stances like abortions at 20 weeks, which is something that the majority of Americans reject. When was she ever questioned about
Never.
the Democratic Party repealing the Hyde Amendment, which is completely against longstanding bipartisan
we know, but
legislation?
that's a
They're
whole
never
different
held
story. The
accountable.
media being an enabler of this propaganda is a whole different story.
Exactly.
Hey, good debate, you guys. Thank you. Next
Thank
on
you,
the
Bill.
rundown, more irrationality over Obamacare. Then later, U.S. troops back on the ground in Syria, Iraq, and Yemen will have a factor investigation up ahead. Impact segment tonight, the unending debate over replacing Obamacare. The left hates the new Republican plan, and some on the right despise it as well. In the middle of the folks being barraged with nonstop propaganda. Joining us now from Austin, Texas, Carl Rowe. As you know, I'm a very simple man, so I only have 3 questions for you, Mr. Rowe. First one is, why exactly do some conservatives object to a Republican proposal on health care?
Yeah. Well, look, there are several kinds of objections. Some people don't want to have a replacement. They want to have just a repeal. Why not go vote back and pass the measure that was passed in January of 2016 by the House and Senate, and it was then vetoed by President Obama? That was a repeal-only measure. So they say, let's just pass that, kill the system entirely, and then take our time at replacing it.
All right, let me
The
stop
problem-
you there. If that happens, then people who are getting health insurance cease to get it, and there's anarchy and chaos within the medical
Absolutely.
community. So that doesn't make a
Absolutely.
lot of sense to me. Second
No,
reason.
and it's not. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. In fact, remember, we said for years, repeal and replace. So some people say, okay, well, let's replace it, but we'll do the repeal first, and we'll come back and do the replace later. But that means we got to get 60 votes for every one of those proposals. I'd love to get as many of those proposals within reconciliation, which means they only need 51 votes. There's some that we will not be able
You're
to get
talking
within
about the Senate
reconciliation.
now on a reconciliation bill. Okay, but I'm more philosophical here, all right? So, okay, some conservatives just want to repeal it outright and then build a new system. Meantime, chaos ensues. What are the other conservative objections?
Well, there is a principled objection to creating advanceable, refundable tax credits for those who buy insurance out of their own pocket, the self-employed and people who work at companies that don't get
So
coverage
they
from
see
their
this
employees.
as, some conservatives see it as an entitlement, all right?
Exactly.
But if you're only
Which I-
making $35,000 a year and you have a few kids in the house, it's a safety net going to, the public good.
Well, exactly. And look, I'd put it this way. You could be making $150,000 a year as a self-employed individual. But why is it that we give a tax advantage to companies to provide it and not to people who have to pay
so
for it
that
out of
sounds
their
like
own
another
pocket?
weak argument that some conservatives
Well, but
don't.
it's a big one in some people's minds. My view is I accept that you don't want the new entitlement, but if you're going to be consistent, then you've got to say that you're in favor of repealing the tax advantage that is given to companies that provide insurance.
Is there
It
anything
ought to be
else
treated
that the
fairly.
right doesn't like about the Republican?
A lot of this stuff is just, some of it strikes me as goofy. I was listening to one of the leaders today say, how dare they have in the replacement measure that the Republicans have in the House, that if you don't have insurance and you wait until you get sick and you show up and say, under the law, no pre-existing conditions, you can't be denied coverage, but insurance companies are allowed to charge you up to 30% more if you haven't been under continuous coverage. And they're saying, how dare they do this? Well, I'm sitting here saying, look, if I'm prudent and I buy insurance to cover my family and I'm paid into an insurance pool and you're being irresponsible and not purchasing insurance until you get sick, why should you get the same price as me?
Okay.
We don't do that
I
in a
think
bunch
that's
of
a
other
good
things.
point, that there should
Yeah.
be a surcharge for those who have
Absolutely.
no insurance and come in and say, now that I have cancer, I want you to pick up all the bills at the same price of the healthy people. Okay, that's
Right.
reasonable. Now, if you were advising President Trump, as you did for Bush the Younger, all right, he's got to go out and he's got to convince his party to pretty much support it down the line and win over a few Democrats in the Senate. So what do you tell President Trump to concentrate on?
Well, I think he's doing it the right way. He's got Tom Price, who knows this bill inside and out, and he's working with the Republican leadership in the House to keep an open line of communication to critics who are looking for a way to be supportive by making changes in the bill. And if that process goes forward, then good things can happen because Price knows the bill.
All right, so Price is the point man, but Trump is the power. He's the power.
You got to.
He's the
That's
arm
right. But you got to have a guy who does a lot of the groundwork on it and says, Mr. President, here's where I think we got a deal, but we need you to be involved in helping sell that deal.
Last question from the simple guy: will the new Republican health care bill, no matter what shape it takes, as we assume it'll change, pass? Prediction.
If I were a bet man, I'd say yes, but there's going to be a column in the Wall Street Journal I'd draw your attention to on Thursday morning that's going to examine this question in detail. I've read the rough draft of it. It's brilliant, really insightful. I think I'm doing a pretty good job with it. I would commend it to you on Thursday morning.
All right, so you are saying that your column on Thursday is brilliant and unprecedented in its wisdom. I just want to...
I wouldn't say unprecedented, but wise, yes. But
all right. But your prediction is that it will pass. Is that correct?
Yeah, and incidentally, not just a little board, my friend. Not just a little board.
It's a truth source. It's a trigger. It's a trigger. Karl Rove, everybody, directly ahead. Factor investigation, U.S. troops now fighting in Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. We don't know much about it. You will in just a few moments. And later, Whoopi Goldberg threatening to sue a guy who smeared her on the net. Back to follow-up segment tonight. U.S. troops fighting in Syria, Iraq, and Yemen right now. You may remember that Navy SEAL Ryan Owens was killed in a raid in Yemen, and that was on January 28th. 6 other U.S. service members were wounded in that ordeal. So what exactly is going on? Joining us in Boston, Colonel David Hunt, Fox News military analyst, author of the brand new novel, Without Mercy. Let's take the Yemen raid first. What happened there?
As you said, late January, members of SEAL Team 6 had trained up for about 3 months, hit a compound in the southern province of Yemen, Baida province, with about 30 guys. When they went towards the compound, there was a village outside which had a lot more terrorists and people with guns than they predicted, than the intelligence read. The SEALs were in a very serious firefight from an uphill advantage. Bad guys were uphill. Had to call in attack helicopters and jets into that area, which is where civilians, about 12, 14 civilians were killed. We lost a great guy you've already talked about, Owens, member of SEAL Team 6, and we lost a $78 million helicopter. So it was
what were they trying to achieve in raiding the compound?
An intelligence gathering operation, period.
What does that mean?
It means you want to get as much information from that compound, whether it's paper or hard drives, computers, or if they capture anybody. So it's an intelligence gathering.
Did they get intel, as the president said?
Yeah, the military classifies this as mission complete. They don't use the term success. They got hard drives and intel.
All right, so they did get it, but they paid a price. Okay, now, in Iraq, we have how many U.S. soldiers, combat soldiers, on the ground right now? Do you know?
3 years ago, Bill, we had 250. About 45 days ago, we had about 6,000, and now we've got about 10,000. And we've got more going into Kuwait. We crossed into Syria late Monday night with Rangers in these Stryker vehicles, which is basically a tank, with a small tank with big rubber tires. And then 2 days later, we put Marines and artillery units in, going towards Raqqa, which is, as you know,
the ISIS capital. All right, so let me stop you. 10,000 combat troops. That's a lot of combat troops, all right, are in either Iraq or Syria right now. So they're going through Iraq. Some of them are helping out with the Mosul fight. ISIS is trapped in Mosul, and the Iraqis are fighting. But we have a good amount of Americans in that fight, right?
There's over 5,000 Americans in the fight in Mosul. That's the toughest fighting in the world, not just Mosul, but anytime you fight combat in the city. It's very, very tough, and we've got about a half to 3/4 of Mosul taken. We still got 2 weeks or a month for that fight to finish, and then we're heading up into, as you said, right now, into Syria.
Let's stay in Mosul now. Are the U.S. Forces there? Are they actually on the front lines with the Iraqis fighting ISIS? Are they in harm's way, or are they support?
No, there is no front line, as you know, hasn't been for 16 years. The answer is directly, we have U.S. soldiers have been for months in direct combat in Iraq. That's been going on for a couple of years. We were there initially to train, and it developed into a lot more.
Okay,
so now we're in the
they're
middle of
fighting alongside the Iraqi army because we haven't heard of many casualties in the Mosul, U.S. casualties anyway, so we've been lucky so far. So then the other 5,000 have moved through Iraq up into Syria to the fight in Raqqa, which really hasn't started yet. And I understand that Kurdish forces and Turkish forces are going to be allied with Americans in that fight. Is that what you're hearing?
Yes, but we've actually crossed the border into Syria.
Yeah, we're in there now. Right.
And the issue, one of the missions is to separate the forces you just described. Kurdish and the Turks have actually two separate forces, militia and their own active military. And then we're also using this to call in airstrikes and develop that battlefield. The remaining of that, we're going to have more forces in the Kuwait. This battle's, what's happened is we've invaded Syria. I'm not sure anybody noticed. And by the way, we will kill everybody, all of ISIS. My issue is going to be, what do you want to do with Syria and a failed state like Iraq afterwards?
Right. But that's a lot of combat, and I think you're absolutely right. Americans don't know. All right, now your new book, Without Mercy, is a novel, and I just started it, and it's ISIS gets an atomic weapon with the help of the Pakistanis. All right? So you're going to scare the hell out of everybody, Colonel, is what you're going to do. Is that correct?
Yes, and this book, which you can get on withoutmercy.org, by the way, ISIS blows a bomb, a nuke up in Bagram Air Base, but before they've done that, they've already sent two towards the west in tankers, and one gets into lower Manhattan. And then we have a president, brand new, a Silver Star winner, who happens to be a woman, who has to figure out recovery and chasing bad guys and cut through a new bureaucracy, which is not built to act fast. So this is the best book of its kind out there. We're very, very proud. I wrote with a guy named R.J. Pinero.
All right, the book again, Without Mercy, and .org, and check it all out. Colonel, always a pleasure. Thank you. Plenty more as the factor moves along this evening. One of the worst crimes we've seen in some time. 31-year-old woman shot to death, and 5 illegal aliens have been charged. Our Law and Order team will have an update. But next, Whoopi Goldberg, furious about being smeared on the net. Dana Perino will tell us what happened. We hope you stay tuned for those reports. President Trump's speech in front of Congress. She is the widow of the man we just talked about in the last segment, the SEAL who was killed in Yemen. Now, people like Michael Moore and Bill Maher said the widow was being exploited, but Whoopi Goldberg did not say that. However, accusations that she did criticize Corinne appeared on a website.
People who didn't see the show may believe it. A lot of other people may believe what you wrote. And man, I'm telling you, you cost me money because I had to protect my family. Yep. So, sir, Costa Rica's not big enough for this lawsuit that's coming your way. Just so we're really clear, I want these protections in place for the current president, for his family, for my family, because if you write something like that, or you write something that endangers his life or his family's life, I'm just as angry at you.
Let's now explain further. Dana Perino, close at 5. Who did this?
It's a young man named James McDaniel. He's 28 years old. He's originally from Florida but lives in Costa Rica right now. He has a job with an American nutrition company, and as a side project, he launched this website called The Underground Report on February 21st. Got 1 million page views in 9 days.
What did he allege Ms. Goldberg said?
Well, he said that she had said that the widow, Corinne Owens, was seeking attention. And she said no such thing.
No. She, on the episode of The View, March 1st, she was critical of President Trump, as she is wont to do, but she didn't say anything directly about Corinne.
No.
So this guy lied.
He lied, and so she comes under a tremendous attack from people. And she's got a lot of personal relationships with veterans, and she was just overwhelmed by it. She said that her personal safety and her family's safety was in question.
Look, I'm a victim of smears every day. I mean, I understand how bad this is, and there are times where I have to have extra security to go and protect my family and myself when somebody will write something particularly vicious in the newspaper or on the net.
Right.
So she's absolutely right, because we researched and she didn't say anything about Mrs. Owens. In fact, she has a right to be outraged, but to sue is difficult.
It's very difficult
or if you're famous.
Right, and so there's not a lawsuit filed yet, but she's thinking about it, she's considering it, and also she's bringing attention to the issue, which I think is good. It's hard when you're a public figure.
Right, because you have to show, people who don't know, you have to show damages. So Whoopi Goldberg would show, I would assume, emotional distress on her and her family. That's damages. And then you have to prove malice. So it's twofold. You have to prove malice. So you'd have to get into this guy's whole psyche and say, well, why did you want to hurt me? Well, now, you can do it, but it is very complicated.
A couple of days after this original report, there was a disclaimer put on the website saying that he does fake news and peddling in what he said is the most ridiculous conspiracy theories, and that he said, in a sort of half-hearted apology to her, I was just showing how fake news can proliferate.
But he wasn't.
No, he lied, and he was trying to hurt her. And the thing is, he's making money from it. This is what is so insidious. The clicks on the website means that he gets a little bit of money every single time. Well, advertising. So as this spreads on the web.
Now that's where she could go after the advertisers that enable him to do this. It'd be very hard to sue this guy, particularly if he lives in Costa Rica, because he's not going to answer any of the subpoenas or anything like that. But it's enough that she's as outraged as she is, and that's a good thing. I know her. And I think that essentially she's 100% correct.
And what she was saying, too, is that she wants either a law changed or the lawsuit in order to protect all of us. I mean, this proliferation of fake news is a danger to everybody, no matter who is spreading it.
The libel laws and the protect defamation laws should absolutely be changed. And the loser in any of these nuisance lawsuits should have to pay. That's what they do in Britain.
That's right.
And that would cut the lawsuits down in half.
That's right.
All right. Well, we'll follow the story. Dana, thanks.
Thanks for
See
having
you.
me.
We come right back. Horrible crime in Washington State, where some illegal aliens are protected by the governor. This one will get you angry. Up next.
14 plus every story, every 15 minutes. Fox News headlines 24/7, channel 115. The O'Reilly Factor, the #1 cable news show for 16 years and counting.
Thanks for staying with us. And Bill O'Reilly in the Law and Order segment tonight. A horrible murder in Washington State. 31-year-old Jill Marie Sundberg, mother of 4 young children, allegedly shot to death by an illegal alien criminal who had been deported. 4 other illegal aliens are being held in the case as well. You may remember the governor of Washington State, Jay Inslee, ordered his state troopers not to cooperate with ICE on many undocumented matters. Listen now, attorneys and Fox News analysts Ebony Williams and Kimberly Guilfoyle. How did the murder happen, Kimberly?
You know, great question, because you wonder, how did this woman end up getting kidnapped and driven away? They were all, I guess, social acquaintances, were at an RV park where there was a party. All of the people involved were in attendance. At some point, there is a verbal discord, some kind of problem, altercation between Ms. Sundberg and one of the defendants, where he feels he was disrespected. So then he ordered the rest of them to put her in an SUV. Then they took her, and this is the shooter you're seeing the picture of, charged with first-degree murder, Gustavo Rodriguez, and took her to a place where it was isolated and kicked her to her knees and put a .40 caliber gun to the back of her head and shot her, and then proceeded to shoot her body 13 more times in cases.
So this Rodriguez, he had been deported? Mm-hmm. He had a criminal record?
Yes, he did.
All right.
So this,
violent record?
Yes, and so DUIs, other incidents, and so the problem is that when you see people like this, and all 5 were illegal, including this individual, he was removed once voluntarily by ICE, but what you see is the problem in a state like Washington, where they don't comply with all of the federal...
Because this guy, Ebony, I understand, actually got bail, Rodriguez, because he was going to be deported again, but before ICE could get him, the local authorities in Washington State gave him an $8,000 bond.
Right, which is
that's
preposterous.
insane.
That's preposterous.
He was already deported and already convicted of felony.
And then the kicker is, when he didn't show up to court for that, no order for his arrest. And if one of us did, we would have one.
He didn't show up after the bail was given, and they didn't put out an order for his arrest.
Which is different than how any 3 of us would be treated.
So the governor, again, sends a message that and illegal alien criminals have a much easier time in Washington State.
Yeah,
and I'm sick of it.
Now, the other
last
4...
incident was domestic violence in 2015.
Violent assault as well.
The other 4 are being held,
Yeah, so the other 4, there's 3 that are being held on homicide and 2 others as material witness to a crime, but I expect that additional charges will be filed.
I guess they were all there.
Well, there's 2 crime scenes, too. A primary and a secondary scene.
Her.
Absolutely.
Right.
So
Okay.
if they were aiding
And the
and abetting.
prosecutors want to know, Bill, the criminal culpability. I don't think they're totally clear, so that's why those other 2 are being held at reduced bond, so they find that out.
And maybe
They're all undocumented Mexican nationals, right?
Big problem.
Okay. Now, Hawaii has filed a lawsuit against the latest travel ban by the Trump administration. And one of the things in their objection, Ebony, is that if people from Yemen and Libya and Sudan and Syria don't come here, it hurts the Hawaiian travel industry. Is that correct?
That's one of the claims, Bill. They also claim, I know that's a bit far-fetched, but they did cite,
That's not far-fetched.
348 to 278 in January from 2017 to 2016. That's a chill
Let me tell you something, Miss Ebony. Last time I was in Waikiki, right next to me was a tour group from Yemen.
Well, it might
and I asked them,
that might be the 100 that they're talking about.
I said, it's hotter in your country and you get this big, giant coastline.
Oh, my God.
Why do you have to go to Hawaii? Well, you can just walk to the coast and jump in the water in Yemen.
It's the macadamia
And they
nuts.
said,
Yeah.
we heard you were going to be here, all right.
Oh, is that what it was?
And then we booked passage
Yeah.
from Yemen to
That's what
Honolulu.
Hawaii
And
needs.
there are
They're on a
non-stop
Wiley
flights.
tour. Yeah.
You know, from Syria,
Yeah.
from Raqqa, you know, if you're ISIS,
Yeah.
you can get on a plane in Raqqa and you can fly right into
Because things
Lahui.
are getting tough there.
But they're making the fiscal argument, Bill, because that worked in the 90s.
Oh, of course. And
So
that's
they're
a
gonna try
valid
to do it
argument.
again.
You
Well,
know Hawaii is
you know.
suffering because these
That's their
people
bread
are
and
being more
butter.
vetted.
Of course.
in these
Can you
countries.
believe this?
You're laughing.
Can I believe it? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got the
Am I
numbers,
mocking
Bill.
it? Of
Yes.
course.
100 people, sure. That's a big deal. So
It's very, very huge. All right? Ladies,
Poor
thank
Hawaii.
you. Gutfeld and McGurk on deck. They barely survived the giant blizzard that hit New York today. We'll have their tales of peril. Gutfeld has a real good one. That's the fact it continues all across the USA and all around the world.